Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How's it going? Hope you're doing well. Hope you are staying warm if it's snowing where you are. Enjoying the beach if it's warm where you are. Um, you know, hopefully we got people watching from all over the United States. And around the world. It would be awesome if had people watching from around the world too. Um, as always, name's Demigod Colt or Dan. Got co-host Zach with us, or Z to the Yak. Really excited about tonight's episode. We got a lot of good things to talk about. Not only do we have the NFL playoffs to talk about, but there's been some pretty big things happen over these last, 3 days of sports, and over the last week for sure. So that being said, want to thank all of you that have been supportive. I know I don't have episodes up on YouTube. It's been a busy past week for me, past 2 weeks. Hopefully I'll get those up this week. But just stick by. If you missed the previous episodes, sit back, enjoy this one, and go check out the ones before it. Before we get into it, I'm gonna pass it over to Zach, and then Zach will hop right into it.
Yeah, we got a lot of good NBA action. I don't think you hinted at it, but we're gonna dive into the NBA. A lot of stuff happened yesterday, and some stuff, a few rumors floating around, even coming into today, kind of the aftermath of some of those trades. So, we'll jump into that, and then I think we'll review our NFL predictions, and then kind of continue our bracket and our prediction.
Well, there was one of the bigger ones that I wanted to talk about before we got to the NBA. And I think this is probably the biggest news of the day by far. Urban Meyer's coming out of retirement to become the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jags. As someone who's in the AFC South, I'm not too worried. He says he's excited, and he says he likes a lot of the pieces that are there. But I just don't see it personally. I don't see them having amazing pieces at that franchise. I mean, yes, sure, they have the number one pick overall. But what are your kind of thoughts as we move into that?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's an exciting, noteworthy name to bring in for sure. It's going to bring some attention to Jacksonville. Obviously, Jacksonville probably going to end up with Trevor Lawrence as well. It kind of has the feeling of, you've seen it with some previous teams where they get that big name QB in the draft. They get that kind of big name head coach. They bring in some staff around him, and they have these quick turnarounds. I don't know if Jacksonville is going to have a quick turnaround, but I like what they've done to start. Just bringing eyes to Jacksonville. People will be watching. So, at the least, that's what they've done, and maybe they can put a winning season together in the next year or two.
Well, for the Colts' sake, hopefully not. But no, I think it's a great hire for them. I'm skeptical still, though, that Lawrence will be the person that they pick. I think it may be Justin Fields. Honestly, he's a quarterback that Urban Meyer's recruited. And I don't know. It gives me that kind of feel that, like, something versus something you don't know. And yes, Trevor Lawrence is this, that, and the other thing, the next best thing. But
I think you're starting to get, when you do that, you're getting a little too cute, and you might have some recency bias as well with Justin Fields in that semifinal game. Trevor Lawrence didn't exactly blow the socks off of really.
Oh no, it has nothing to do with that game for me.
No,
the recruiting aspect. I think it's more just the recruiting aspect. I think when you're an Ohio State coach and you have all of these 5-star talent and 4-star talent, like you may or less, he's comfortable. He knows what Justin Fields can do. He recruited him. He knows what he can do. He knows how he can where he can put the ball and how he can put the ball. And I think there's some familiarity there. And not that's saying that Urban Meyer's is a touchy-feely type of person, and will not put football, will put his emotions ahead of football. But I don't know. It's just something that kind of pops in my head as a
Yeah,
potential.
I think that's a possibility. I could see it. I would. It feels like something just where you're going against the grain a little too much, just because you think you may have that familiarity, having recruited him.
Yeah.
Well, basically everyone else is saying he's the consensus number one overall pick. So it would be I would consider that a pretty shocking move if they did that.
Yeah, I mean, it just interesting to me from that
Yeah,
standpoint.
possibility.
Um, it'll be fun to watch the draft, and we'll have to watch kind of the training camp, or not training camp, combine, just to see kind of how it all plays out from that standpoint for sure.
Right.
But we can move over to the NBA if you want now and go kind of breaking news over there.
Yeah. Well, the big one, um, James Harden to Brooklyn. Um, I guess kind of leading up to this backstory. What was that? Tuesday night. Um, James Harden played. Rockets had a loss. Forget who they played, but there were some
I think
post-game
they
press
played the Clippers.
conferences. Clippers.
I think so.
Um, there was some post-game press conferences with most notably James Harden, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, I think maybe even a couple other guys on the team. James Harden basically walked out of the press conference saying, "I've done everything I can do here, and it's not enough," and then walked out. Paraphrasing. Um, and then John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins kind of later came out saying, it's hard to win when you have a guy that isn't bought in, doesn't want to be there, isn't really trying. You kind of watch James Harden. He's just playing the game. He's not playing to his MVP
Yeah,
effort level.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and so that kind of started this whole cascade. Houston was in a pretty good spot where they didn't have to rush the trade for James Harden. They were fielding offers from, the Heat. It looks like kind of some details came out. The Heat, the Celtics declined, Heat declined, the Sixers declined, um, which ultimately left them with Brooklyn. But they were kind of fielding offers and getting the best that they could. But James Harden kind of threw a wrench in that and turned their entire team from, kind of a functioning team to a pretty toxic environment.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
Houston really lost their leverage with that. They couldn't continue playing with him, even if they benched him, which it sounds like they were going to do. Even if he was just not around the team, it's still kind of like in the corner of their eye. He's still there, so they had to deal him. And sure enough, it was like before even 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they dealt him to Brooklyn. They got rid of him.
They lost
And
to the Lakers, actually.
the Lakers. Okay. And if you remember the um, kind of some offers that were floating around earlier from Brooklyn were, you had Kyrie Irving's name in there, you had Spencer Dinwiddie's name in there, you had Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, and picks, and Houston ended up getting about, like, I know Dinwiddie got hurt, but they got like half of that, kind of, maybe 2/3 of
I
it.
mean, they got 8 picks or something ridiculous. They got four unprotected, and 4 swaps.
They did. They did. They got a lot of picks, but if you're Houston, you brought in John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, you got Christian Wood. You're still in a kind of a fighting for the playoff position. You're not really full rebuilding, so they
Yeah,
could have used, um, a Dinwiddie if healthy, a uh, um, Jared Allen, who somehow ended up on the Cavs. Kind of a weird like 3-team deal here, but anyway, that was kind of the whole backstory. Houston lost their leverage, had to make a deal because it was pretty toxic environment, and then we're left with a couple other swaps after that. Do you want to touch on those ones?
Yeah, I mean the big one obviously is the Pacers for me. Um,
Yeah.
Victor Oladipo getting taken out of, getting traded, and it appears there's also some news that he still prefers to end up with the Heat. So
Yeah.
probably no long-term deal coming for Houston from that one. I think that was probably just more or less a cap hit. Um, and big, I mean, Karis LeVert, good player, plays the same way Victor does. So it's I think it's gonna be good for us in the long run, obviously. Um, and frankly, I hate to say this because I'm an IU basketball fan, and Victor Oladipo was an IU player, and you could see it when he was healthy. He was a great player, and he has that superstar potential. But when he's not healthy, like he's not the same person. And frankly, I hate to say this, but I think his music career literally he's got a great voice, don't get me wrong, great voice, but his music career is getting in the way of him being that next level player. I was actually talking to my personal trainer about this because he asked me about the trade, getting rid of Oladipo. And I was like, his music career got in the way. And I said, go look back at like Kobe, go look at Michael Jordan, go look at LeBron James. Like, tell me what else they were doing other than basketball. Like during the season, even not during the season, Kobe was focused so much on basketball and getting better. LeBron James was focused on basketball and getting better. Michael Jordan, there's a story when he didn't even make his freshman basketball team, or he was on junior varsity or something. He shot like 1,000 free throws a day. Like, you have to at this point, like, you can be a good player and not dedicate yourself to it, but if you want to be the elite of the elite, you have to dedicate every part of who you are to that, especially in basketball, especially in sports. You have to do that, and if you're not willing to do that, then you're going to not be as good of a player as you could have been. And I think Victor was over. I think his music career is really what has hurt him here, and I think it will follow him to wherever he ends up. And I think it'll be a bad situation for a lot of people. Um, I just do. You know, yeah. I don't think this moves the needle for me. When it comes to Houston making the playoffs, I didn't have them making the playoffs, and frankly, I really don't think they do now. They don't have it that John Wall is a superstar, but he's not take over the team superstar. So unless they figure that all out, uh, I don't see them in the playoffs. Whereas I could have maybe seen them in the playoffs as that late one. And as far as the Nets go, I mean, surely the Nets have to be, if not the favorites out of the East, the favorites for the title. I mean,
Yeah. Well, just a few things there. I think Victor Oladipo, the big thing is just still dealing with injury. That ruptured quad tendon is not an easy injury to come back from.
mm-hmm.
And I really like, I there had to been some sort of cap hit, kind of money side of this deal with the Rockets and Indy, because Karis LeVert is up and coming, potentially one of the more promising players in the league right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pacers basically traded off
20 million, 22 million.
Yeah.
For like what, 4?
And potentially, I would say a better player for this year. Maybe Oladipo gets healthy over the long term and returns to form. But I think Karis LeVert is a star, kind of started to bud last year with Kyrie out, and has had a great start with the Nets. So,
well, I mean, the other thing that I have to say on the Vic Oladipo thing is he may become a great player again, and his music career may not be anything to be worried about here. But what I will say is he looks disinterested when it comes the same way that Harden looked. Victor Oladipo was giving us those same looks as a Pacer.
Yeah, and it's a crowded team. You know, he might just want a fresh start. He wants to go to the Heat, which is a crowded team as well.
He wants his music career.
Yeah, so
Miami's a better place for him.
It is, yeah.
Especially if you want music.
Be interested to see what Miami's willing to give up for him.
Well, nothing. They don't have to give up anything for him. He's a free agent after this year, so he will probably play out this contract, and then
Houston really has no leverage there.
No, they have none.
And then you commented on Brooklyn. Obviously, their trio is absolutely devastating. Probably favorites in the East. We'll see how they mesh. You know, it's a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah.
You know, James Harden being very ball dominant. You know, Kevin Durant we've seen is able to play off the ball, kind of play a secondary role, and I think Kyrie can probably do that as well. So we'll be interested to see how they play. But bigger question for me is the Nets. Their depth is basically obliterated with this trade. You know, they traded.
Yeah. Exum.
Yeah, they traded Dante Exum. They traded the big one is it's Jared Allen, right?
Oh, sorry. Exum was on Cleveland. Jared Allen, Tyrene Price, and
Prince,
Rod Dion's Crux. I don't know how to say that dude's name.
Yeah. Well, the big two are Tyrene Prince and Jared Allen. You know, Jared Allen's a pretty good center, like worthy of a starting center basically on any other team. And obviously they lost Karis LeVert, who was kind of their sixth man, led the second unit.
Yep.
And then Taurean Prince was a nice role player, kind of filled in that small forward, power forward position. And they're basically left with DeAndre Jordan, Jeff Green, and Joe Harris. Dinwiddie's out for the year. So their depth took a major hit here. We're going to, you know, maybe they're kind of forecasting they can add someone like a George Hill later on in the season. But, you know, they're going to have to keep one, if not two of those guys, you know, Durant, Kyrie, and Harden on the court at all times because they don't really have anyone else.
Their backup center's name is, and Ted would probably laugh at this, Nicholas Claxton. Claxton.
I think I saw they were projecting DeAndre Jordan to start, and then Jeff Green. They were going to go like small ball lineup.
Okay.
With it, like Durant at the 4 or 5, and then Jeff Green at the 4 or 5.
I mean, you've got Bruce Brown, who's backup guard, averaging 5.3. Chris Chiozza 4.3. Jeff Green 6.1. Joe Harris is playing fairly well, actually, 14.5. Tyler Johnson 2.3. Timothy Luwalu Chabot, I don't know how to say that guy's name, 9.2. Claxton hasn't even played. That's disappointing.
Yeah.
You know,
that's their bench.
Yeah, I mean, that's their bench. I mean,
and we've seen, you know, as much star power is important. I think, you know, you look back to a team like Golden State, and a lot of basketball is maintaining and not having drop off with your second units. You know, having a second unit that can compete and even go on runs. You know, you think back with Golden State. You know, you could keep a Klay Thompson or Steph Curry on the court and surround them with a good second unit with Livingston. I'm trying to think of some of the guys they had, but they had scorers.
Iguodala, Livingston. David Lee.
David West. Andrew Bogut. You know, they had depth that there wasn't a massive drop off really at any position. So that'll be the big question with Brooklyn. How they manage their rotations to not have their bench be like minus 20 every game.
And it kind of yeah, I mean it'll be really interesting, but I've got to think you've got to think that Houston, or not Houston, the Nets are that best team to come out of the East, and it'll be really it'll be a really fun series to watch, the Bucks versus the Nets, because Giannis is. I honestly think when it comes down to it, when it's all said and done, Giannis will probably be the better player than Kevin Durant. I think when people look at history, I think Giannis will be what Kevin Durant was supposed to be. Personally, I like how Giannis plays. I think he is that. He's had kind of the same trajectory as Kevin Durant, but at the same time, he stayed with his team instead of joining the champions. So it'll be interesting from that standpoint. But I think that could be a lot of fun to watch.
Players, though, like
true,
they're completely different. I mean, Kevin Durant is just a cold-blooded scorer, and Giannis is just kind of an athletic body freak, with a lot of skill.
Yeah. So it's true. It's true. So the question then comes, there's also something else going on in the NBA. There are two things going on the NBA that are kind of related. The first one is Kyrie having a family gathering, not wearing a mask. Interested on your thoughts on that. He's not with the team right now because of it. And then the other one is the new protocol that you and I kind of talked about. Do you want to talk about that protocol and kind of your thoughts, and then also the thoughts of Kyrie potentially being penalized and punished for having a family gathering and not wearing a mask?
Oh boy.
Do you want to go on record with that, or do you want to kind of keep that down? Because I mean, I know where you live, and that could be a really touchy subject.
It's fine. Try and keep it under like an hour. I guess first off, the whole thing with Kyrie is a bit weird. I don't know. He's kind of an odd character. Him leaving the team in the first place, you kind of assumed it was the timing. It was kind of around that whole capital deal, but it turns out his sister had a birthday and family gathering. Thought a mask. I don't know about you, but I don't wear my mask when I'm with my family.
Nope,
so that's a little odd.
Nope, I don't.
That's a little odd that they're throwing him under the bus for that. And yeah, I don't know what he's up to. I guess he came out with some comments saying he's ready to get back. They don't know when that will be, but I don't think he should be penalized. I think if anything, the NBA should leave it up to Brooklyn to do it in-house if Brooklyn sees fit. I don't, there was kind of rumblings that he was not communicating with the team. They didn't really know why he was gone. And then he was seen on a political Zoom call with 15 or 20 other people in the middle of Brooklyn's like Monday or Tuesday night game. So just a very odd situation. We'll see what Brooklyn does. I don't think the NBA should punish him for any sort of reason, especially a COVID reason. Just go by the protocol. You left your team bubble, quote unquote. You got to. I don't know what the protocol is, but you got to produce one or two consecutive negative tests and quarantine for 7 days or whatever the protocol. Just put them through that. Call it good. I don't think you need to suspend him or do anything. And then touching on the new NBA rules that were implemented, you and I were talking. If these are actually logical decisions being made to help control the outbreak that the NBA is is going under right now, or if it's just more to save face, and we kind of both agree that it's more to save face because you're playing a contact sport, you're diving on the floor, grabbing rebounds, you're backing people down in the paint, you're guarding them with your face 6 inches away from them.
Yep.
But then to tell them that you can't high five your teammates that you share a locker room, bus, and plane with after a free throw, you can't high five them. I mean, it's just silly. It's honestly
Well,
silly.
and the Clippers last night were high fiving like they were like it was like, well,
Yeah.
that protocol works.
It's silly. I don't know who thinks of these rules and says, these will work. Like, we're not going to have any COVID cases now because they don't high five.
So
Yeah.
just so the viewers know kind of what this protocol is, I'm going to go through it real quick, just really quickly. So the new added protocol that they already had their initial protocol where if you were contracted COVID or were around someone who did, you have to be quarantined for, I believe, 17 days, 14 to 17 days. You had to have negative tests as well. But moving forward on that, players violating the safety guidelines may face a loss in pay proportionate to the loss availability due to the quarantine or reinstatement steps. They could get a formal warning, a fine, suspension, or an educational session. Here, you obviously can't figure out that you need to be quarantined, so you're going to get more education. That's like the people that get multiple speeding tickets that they send to driving school. Pay a fee. You're not going to pay attention. Most people don't pay attention. The NBA may conduct unannounced inspections of team facilities to ensure that franchises are complying with the safety protocols. Once a vaccine is available, the league and the NBA association will negotiate whether players, coaches, and staff will be required to receive it. While the teams at their home market, team personnel will be prohibited from going to bars, lounges, or clubs. I think that was supposed to be lounges. From attending live events or sporting events, from using gyms, spas, or pools, or from participating in social gatherings with more than 15 people. On the road, players, coaches, staff will be permitted to dine outside their hotel if the restaurant provides outdoor dining, have fully privatized indoor rooms, or have met requirements by formally approving by league and players' unions. And basically, the league and the players' unions will supply with 3 approved restaurants in each market. Teams will designate travel parties of no more than 45 people as Tier 1 members. Other employees and staff members, less direct contact, require masks and social distancing, will be required Tier 2. Individuals in both tier get twice a day or get daily tests, and the NBA will also provide twice weekly tests for household members of players and staff. Teams face potential penalties if they fail to comply with these mandates, and the NBA preseason schedule featuring 49 games begins Friday and runs through December 19th. So those were the ones that came out on December 5th. Those aren't even the additional ones. Those are the original ones.
Yeah.
And the ones on top of it, meetings for at least the next 2 weeks. Any pregame meeting in the locker room is limited to no more than 10 minutes in duration. And all attendants must have face masks. Activities outside for the next 2 weeks will remain at their residence or at the hotel. Team flights, team must create a seating plan on the plane so that players who assign seats are closest to each other on the bench for games are the closest to each other on the team plane. Game day players are prohibited from arriving at the arena more than 3 hours before. Like seriously, what are these rules?
It's
Isn't there
ridiculous.
circulating air in an airplane, so it doesn't matter where you sit? You're still going to be breathing the same air that someone else is breathing. Like, you could be at the front of the plane and I could be at the back, and we are sharing the same air. Yes, it goes through a filter, but
they have like heavy filtration systems. But yes, I think
it just makes me laugh.
I think George Hill came out with a comment and said it best, paraphrasing, but I think he basically said these rules are so silly, and if it's this serious, if it's really this serious, should we even be playing this season? You know, and he said it best.
The Indiana boy has the right words. That's why Indiana's so smart.
Yeah, it's like you can't expect these guys. The playoff bubble worked because it was a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
These players are humans. They have families. They have wives. They have kids. They have friends. They have sisters' birthdays, like Kyrie Irving.
Yep.
That they want to celebrate with.
Yep.
And
yeah.
You can't just put them in one of those big plastic balls and put them in the locker room, put them on the court, put them on the airplane, put them in the hotel, and just tell them to never leave any of those locations. You can have common sense rules. I think the one thing I heard in there that does make sense is don't go to strip clubs, bars, or lounges. That makes some sense.
Yeah.
Don't do that. But to punish Kyrie Irving for celebrating sister's birthday seems silly, and a lot of these rules seem silly. These people have families and kids, and if you're the NBA, you kind of know what you signed up for with undergoing this season, and it's on the players to just do their part and be smart, really.
Yeah, you and I kind of talked about this, and this can kind of wrap up our, at least from my point. You and I kind of talked about this earlier in the year about when you and I were talking about college football. And all you have to do is put the college football players in a bubble. And I'll be honest, I really honestly think, and you say, well, your argument and other people's arguments were, how are you going to tell a college kid that they have to do X, Y, and Z? Like, they're kids. They're not gonna follow your rules. And you know what's funny? I honestly think that that college sports has done a better job than professional sports at this.
I think it's probably just the fact that the college kids that are going to their college don't have family that are easily accessible.
Probably, absolutely.
Or the means to go to restaurants, strip clubs, lounges, bars, like NBA players do. I think when you're a college kid, and you're playing for Alabama, and you're coming from Florida or Texas or something, I mean, what else is there to do other than basically stay in your dorm or apartment and play Warzone with your
yeah, but hold on. These NFL and NBA players are doing the same dang thing.
Some of them.
Juju Smith-Schuster's on Warzone. We could probably load up Twitch right now. He's probably playing Warzone right now when he should be in the gym. But like,
he's also like what, 23 or 24.
Yeah, true. But
these NBA guys are a little older.
I bet KD plays Warzone. Wouldn't be surprised.
George Hill's a little older. I bet he's seen his family, and
I'm sure. It's I don't know about you. If I was being paid as much as these guys are being paid, I'd make it work. It seems like it seems like NBA players right now, some of them, they're not taking it as seriously as they should. And I'm not saying they should take it more seriously than they currently are, but at the same time, like, don't think I'm advocating for Kyrie Irving to get penalized or suspended or fined even, because I'm not. But they're not really. I mean, the Pacers Sun game got postponed for Saturday because of health reasons, and it's like we're postponing games now, and it's like everyone needs to figure themselves out and do better for everyone.
Yeah, I agree with that too. It just takes one guy on one team to have, test positive, and he was on the bench for the game that night, and then it shuts down the whole team and shuts down the team that they played against.
Yep.
So that's
we saw
really
that in the MLB.
Yep. The one silver lining though as we kind of wrap up the NBA here is I believe they did not schedule the second half of the season yet in anticipation of something like this. So the NBA, as long as they can kind of get this under control and keep it moving, I think they'll have time to figure this out and move some of these postponed games toward the second half of the season. So
it would also be interesting to me. It's interesting to me why the NBA and the NFL, why these sports teams aren't buying the vaccine themselves and distributing it out to their players. That's always been something interesting to me because I have heard of companies buying vaccines and distributing them out to their people, to their workers.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me why the NBA, we know why it comes down to money. It comes down to spending the money, but you're spending a crap ton of money on COVID tests. Why not just buy the vaccine and then eventually?
Yeah, I'd imagine it gets complicated with like state restrictions.
Potentially, yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's a big rabbit hole.
Maybe I'll ask our director, health commissioner, that next time I see her.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. So it wraps up the NBA. I think that there's obviously a lot of games in the NBA going on. So hopefully we'll have a good wrap up. But jumping over to the NFL, we had a heck of a week last week. I really do think there were some great games last week for the NFL. I think they should be very happy with the wild card weekend and how it transpired.
We don't follow the herd.
I will say, don't ever have another game on Nickelodeon. It was great for the fans that have never watched the sport before. Otherwise, it was a waste of time. It wasn't that cool. Maybe kids enjoyed it, but as an adult, there's no way I'd ever do it. So how do you want to do this? You want to talk about last week's games a little bit and then talk about this coming week's games, or what do you want to?
Let's just hit it. Kind of top things from the wild card last week, and maybe make predictions for this week's games.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start with the Colts and Bills. We'll just go down the list. Great game by both teams. Colts easily could have won this game. We had a missed kick by our field goal kicker, and then also gave up an opportunity to kick a field goal earlier in the game because we went for two. Buffalo's defense, they're going to have a hard time this week. They will be playing the Ravens. And they just don't have... The Bills also, all they have is a passing game. That's why the Colts almost won this game, in my opinion. You've got Josh Allen, who's playing incredibly well. I do think he is one of the better young quarterbacks in the league by far. 26 of 35 for 324 and 2 TDs. He also had 54 yards on the ground. But when your quarterback has more rushing yards than both of your running backs, that's a problem. Even if you're the Ravens, that's a problem. So it'll be interesting. I think the Colts easily could have won this game, and they choked and didn't pull it off. So that was my prediction, obviously, that the Colts would beat the Bills here. But props to the Bills. They've got a hard game this week against the Ravens. So
yeah, I think this was the one touched on last week. It's kind of a danger matchup for the Bills. Just the two team kind of philosophies, the way they play.
Yeah.
The weather didn't help out the Colts really, but I think we saw that kind of manifest, and it was a close game. Could have went, a made field goal could have went either way, really.
Yeah, it absolutely could have.
Yeah.
And we had a really bad penalty too. It was a really, really bad offside penalty that they were going to easily kick the field goal. And they didn't, so that would have been 4 points right there. They got the touchdown because of that. So it would have been -4. So theoretically that game could have ended 24-23. So moving on though, your lovely team.
Yeah, gosh, they I mean, you can't say didn't really see it coming the last like month and a half of the season. The offense has just looked atrocious, and Russell Wilson really has not played well since like a month and a half into the season.
Yeah.
He had a pretty, I think he was barely I think it was a PFF grade. I think he was barely inside the top 15 over the last, might have been 8 or 10 weeks of the season, which isn't going to cut it.
No.
They play the Seahawks. Obviously, they just fired their offensive coordinator, but they play this kind of this like knives edge offensive approach, and when it works, it really works. It's a lot of shots downfield. It's a lot of rollouts, broken plays. Russell Wilson kind of living on the edge and taking a lot of shots downfield. He doesn't really live in the middle of the field. It's a lot on the edge, a lot downfield. And when those don't hit, they're not always reliable. Kind of those one-on-one deep balls.
Yeah.
When those don't hit, they don't go your way. You don't really have a running game, and your offensive line is rough, and you're rolling out broken plays. You kind of see the offense just kind of collapse. When you're relying on such big plays constantly, and those get shut down, and you can't generate consistent offense. I think that's kind of what we started to see.
Yeah.
With the Seahawks. It was too much of a kind of all or nothing approach. And first 6 weeks, we had everything. We had Russell Wilson leading the MVP charge, and then last probably 2 months, kind of a whole lot of nothing from the offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge. I think you guys need a run game. I think you need an offensive line. You need to, with this offseason, you guys really need to focus on your offensive line and making sure you have a run game. I mean, Chris Carson had 77 yards on 16 carries, 4.8. That's not bad at all, but if you had an offensive line that could keep Russ up, I think that you guys would be in a much better position. He was sacked 5 times, and that's just him getting hit a lot. I was hoping the Seahawks would pull this off, but I think that Rams defense, man, is so good.
They're good. Yeah.
They're so good.
But I mean, there's no excuse for the Seahawks. They lost to, basically a quarterback that ended up in the hospital, and a quarterback that had 3 screws in his thumb, and team that was missing their best defensive player for
half the game.
Half the game, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, no excuse. Seahawks should have won this game, and they ended up, for better or worse, choking. Moving on to the Bucs versus Washington football team. So obviously, as we know, the Bucs have kind of been my pick to win this Super Bowl. Just hard to bet against playoff Tom. But I've got to be honest, if I was a Bucs fan, and I'd be a little worried. I really don't think they win this game. Taylor Heinicke, give him all the credit in the world. He played a hell of a game. 26 of 44 for 306 yards and 1 TD with only 1 interception. He took care of the ball. He was moving the ball down the field.
His running touchdown was one of the best plays maybe I've seen this season.
Yeah,
really.
He played incredibly well. I think the Bucs lose this game if Alex Smith is starting quarterback. That's my hot take. That's my Max Kellerman take. I think the Bucs lose the game if Alex Smith is the quarterback. And the interesting thing is Leonard Fournette had 19 carries for 93 yards. It's the first time we've seen Leonard Fournette really, really do something this season. And I told you that's what's going to happen. It's going to rely on how well can Brady play and how well does their run game go with Leonard Fournette. Because when it comes down to it, defense and run game are the keys in the playoffs, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The Bucs, they've yet to just they've had instances, but they've yet to string together weeks or even really games where they look that impressive.
Hmm.
I know they're winning games. They got Tom Brady. They got everyone on paper that they have, but they still haven't had very emphatic wins.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of like kind of skating by. Um, I don't know. You're getting down to the last few weeks of the season. You got to be explosive. You need some big plays from both sides of the ball, and I don't know if the Bucks have quite had that. They've kind of just been this consistently above average, but not exceptional team. And if they pull it out late, they have that extra gear. They're a dangerous team, but we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. I'd agree with you. I mean, I'm waiting for Tom Brady to just go off for 700 yards, and I mean, he almost had 400. But so if Brady's gonna play like that, he really needs that defense, that Buccaneers defense, to step up these next couple weeks. Going further on, Ravens and Titans. If I remember correctly, I think you had the Titans winning this game.
I did, yeah.
What happened?
They honestly, I thought this was a game they should have won. I don't know if I was talking to you on this, but I watched most of this game, and it honestly looked like a couple college teams were playing.
Yeah,
like the
you did mention
Titans
that.
offense just sucked. Really, it was
200
bad.
and 200 and like 30 total yards, 209 total yards. Yeah.
Derrick Henry did nothing. Defense was okay, but you're not really going up against like that much of a powerhouse in the Ravens offense.
I don't know. I don't know if I'd say that, man. Lamar Jackson, 16 for 136, rushing with Dobbins, J.K. Dobbins at 43.
What he's going to do every
Yeah.
single play.
Oh yeah.
He threw for 179
Yeah.
and had a pick. Make him throw the ball.
Yep.
The pick he had was underthrown and thrown to the left by like 10 yards one way and underthrown 5 yards the other way. So make them throw the ball. I don't, the Titans, I don't know if it was a game plan thing, but I think it really just came down to their offense. And then they just let Lamar Jackson run all over them instead of throwing the ball. And it really felt like I was watching a college game, and the Ravens just sneaked by because they had more
points on the board.
More tricks up their sleeve on offense, really, with the running game that they had. So
I'll say it. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Ryan Tannehill is not the answer.
Yeah.
I've told you multiple times this year that if you had to rely on Ryan Tannehill to win the game, it wasn't going to happen. So you have to stop Derrick Henry. If you stop Derrick Henry, you more than likely are going to win the game. If you look at the games where Derrick Henry doesn't have a lot of yards, they generally lose the game. The first time they played the Colts, they lost the game because Derrick Henry didn't have a whole lot of yards. And they lost the second game because Derrick Henry had a whole lot of yards. So, I felt like Baltimore had something to prove at this game because of the overtime loss that they had from them a few weeks back. I just felt like the Ravens were hungrier than the Titans. And frankly, if I'm the Titans organization, I know you just handed him a big contract and you're probably not going to find someone better. But I'm looking at what we have in Ryan Tannehill because I just don't think that I don't think he's the answer. I will never think that he's the answer.
Yeah, it's kind of, they have a very like high floor, low ceiling offense.
Yeah.
And we saw their floor this week, which wasn't terrible, but it's not good enough to win a playoff game. So
yeah,
I really think the Bills will handle the Ravens. I didn't think the Titans were that good. I didn't think the Ravens are all that great either, but I think the better team won on that day. If you notice, though, it's looking at the stats, 109 of Lamar Jackson's 179 yards went to one receiver. So you make him throw the ball, you shade Marquise Brown, and I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know how the Ravens put up points if you do that.
I have to disagree with you though. And I think the Ravens will win. I'm just not sold on the Bills. And they may prove me wrong this weekend, but the Bills literally have one of the worst run defenses in the league. And you are going into Buffalo, just so you know, weather at 6 a.m. on Friday is raining and 33. At 9 a.m. on Saturday, it's snowing and 33 degrees. With a wind speed of 17 miles per hour. So you're going up to Buffalo, where the weather is probably going to be terrible, and you're going in against one of the worst run defenses in the league with J.K. Dobbins and Lamar Jackson. The Baltimore Ravens defense is real good in my opinion. And especially with them stopping Derrick Henry, now they don't have to worry about someone like Derrick Henry. I think this is a win for the Ravens. I think because of the weather, again, I think it comes down to the weather. If it's a clear sky day, I think Allen can pick them apart. But if it's snowy, I just have to pick the Ravens here from my standpoint.
I mean, that weather's going to be a big factor. But I just feel like, you're not the greatest run defense, but I feel like it's so easy to game plan against that you can just, what's going to happen. Like, you can just.
But no one's been able to stop it.
Lamar Jackson was not running for the first really like 8 weeks of the season. It wasn't until the last half or third of the season when they started kind of playing some pretty awful teams, like Jaguars, Bengals, Cowboys, someone else in there that was really bad.
He rushed for a lot of yards on Cleveland, Philly.
Philly was in there.
I mean, he averaged. I'd have to do the math really quickly, but let me see. I'll do the math real quick. Keep talking.
I feel like if Bill Belichick were coaching one of these teams, like the Bills, or Tennessee, I feel like his sort of coaching and game planning going up against the Ravens would just completely shut down their offense.
Yeah, but it's not Bill Belichick.
It's not. and you're not going to get a Bill Belichick game plan, but just sell out for the run. Stack the box, sell out for the run. And if Lamar Jackson beats you by throwing 10 balls, 20 plus yards downfield and racks up 325 yards and 3 touchdowns in the air, then you tip your cap, but you can't let him run for 150 on you.
Yeah, he's averaged almost 70 or he's averaged 67 yards a game, including the playoff game.
I think that's just, it's got to be your game plan to do that. And
yeah, I mean, it does.
Your chances go up significantly if that's your game plan.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They do. They absolutely do. I just don't know if the Bills defense will be able to do that. But we'll see. Especially in bad weather, I'm not sure if they can. But okay, Bears versus Saints. Honestly, I don't really have much to say on this game. We knew who the
game.
Yeah, it was a slime game. Never going to do that again. But let's be real here. The Bears are who we thought they were. Yep. That's just, they didn't have any run game. They didn't have much of a defense. Their defense was horrible, and their quarterback did nothing. Drew Brees had a relatively decent day, and Alvin Kamara had a decent day. There's not much. This was pretty much a standard game. in my opinion. There's not much to talk about here for me, at least.
No, I think most people had this predicted, so not a whole lot.
And then finally, the Browns versus Steelers. First playoff win for the Browns since 1994. I was 1 year old. I wasn't even 1 year old though for this one, actually, because my birthday's in February. So I was 11 months old last time they won a playoff game. And I don't know who their quarterback was and kind of don't care. But
long time.
It was a good game by, Baker had a good game for the most part. 21-34 for 263 with 3 TDs. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb got the job done there. It'll be, Big Ben threw for 500 yards. It kind of makes you wonder if Big Ben is actually going to be done after this season. But if he's not done after this season, they need to figure out this run game and figure it out quick, because he threw the ball 68 times, which has got to be a record. He had 4 picks. Yeah, he had 4 picks, but it's got to be a record. I don't know if it is, but yeah.
It was kind of an odd game. I mean, Cleveland got out to such a hot start first quarter. And I feel like it was one of those games, Big Ben threw 68 times, 500 yards. The final score doesn't indicate like that it was a blowout, but I think a lot of those were kind of junk yardage.
Yeah.
Cleveland kind of just playing the odds, saying, we've got this big lead. Let's not try and do anything too crazy. Just kind of hold the fort until the clock runs out and we get our win. But it is a little concerning. This has happened to Cleveland a couple times. I think it was Baltimore, maybe a Tennessee game, where their defense gave up, 30 plus, 40 plus points. Maybe even after getting off to a pretty significant lead as well. So if you're Cleveland, you get your first playoff win, you celebrate that, but you're going to have to be a lot better on the defensive side coming into next week.
They gave up 38. They gave up 38 to the Cowboys, 34 to the Bengals, 35 to the Titans, 47 to the Ravens.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yeah.
30.
One of those, maybe even 2 of them were similar to the kind of, they jumped out to a 3 or 4 score lead, and then
I think it was the Titans game, and I think it was the Ravens. They also did it against the Colts too, and we almost came back and won, but we didn't. Yeah.
So, little concern for the Browns. I mean, they're playing the Chiefs, so you gotta play 4 quarters. Next week.
So we've talked about the Bills and Ravens. We've kind of talked. I'm assuming you said you were taking the Bills. I said I was taking the Ravens here. Let's talk about the other one in the AFC, Browns and Chiefs. Who you got?
Sticking with the Chiefs.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going with the Chiefs here too. Andy Reid is 7-0 against the Chiefs in his career. 7-0 against the Browns in his career. I think the Chiefs are the better team. Patrick Mahomes is the better quarterback. They've got the better wide receiver. They've got a full stable of running backs. They probably don't have better running backs actually, but they've got a full stable of running backs. And I honestly think, hey Zach, thanks for the Prime sub. I honestly think that the Chiefs defense is probably a little bit better than the Browns, so I got to take the Chiefs here.
Yeah, and they're well rested.
Yeah, right? they're well rested.
17 off, right? And
had last week off too. Yeah.
Last week, yeah. So,
who you got? Rams and Packers.
I'm sticking with the Packers. I think the Rams are. They snuck one out with the Seahawks. Kind of. They deserved that win, but I think it was kind of just a weird week, and they snuck that one out. But I think the Packers are a much better team and are going to win. Yeah,
I'm picking the Packers on this one. I think you don't know what you're going to have at quarterback with Jared Goff this week, but you got to, or Aaron Donald for for that matter. But fun fact, it is Green Bay's number one scoring offense versus the Rams' number one scoring defense. So could be a tough game for the Packers, but they also got some rest as well. So
they did, but I believe, is it David Bakhtiari, their left tackle? I want to say it was the last game of the season, got injured. Was it torn ACL, I believe? So Aaron Rodgers' blindside is going to have a new guy protecting that, I believe.
Yeah, but you know who they signed? They signed the guy that was on the Colts. That played left tackle for us literally last week. Jared Veldier. He's
how did the Colts have him in a playoff game and now he's going to go play for the Packers though?
I don't know, but it happened. He was his contract, because the season was over for the Colts, he was on our practice squad. Actually, he was elevated from the practice squad 2 weeks in a row. He was put back on the practice squad. The Packers signed him off the practice squad. But
that's got to be weird if you're that guy to go play a playoff game, lose, and then go play a playoff game.
Oh, never mind. He was placed on reserve COVID list, so he's not even going to play now.
Oh, okay.
But he could be the only player in NFL history to play on two teams during the playoffs. No joke. And this guy retired. He retired, came out of retirement to play for the Colts.
Wow.
And then now is going to play with the Packers potentially. So,
wow. Funny
story. I'm picking the Packers. I think, yes, his blind side will be open, but I really do think that he'll do well, or that whoever steps into that will be put in the right position. So, yeah. And then the final game of the weekend, big one, 6:45 or 6:40 my time, 3:40 your time kickoff. The Bucks versus Saints. Who you got?
I think this is the toughest matchup to pick the week.
We'll preface it by saying New Orleans has won 5 straight versus Tampa.
Yeah. I get this feeling. It's really nothing objective, but if you remember back to that week where the Saints just completely wiped the Bucks out.
Yeah.
Pretty early on.
Sunday Night Football, I think.
Yeah, and you kind of combine that with the playoff Tom Brady mentality. You know, he kind of goes. He's got that killer instinct, like like a Michael Jordan, like a Kobe Bryant, and I think there's a chip still sitting on that team's shoulder and Tom Brady's shoulder from when they got wiped out earlier this season. It's gonna be a close game. Can go either way, but I'm gonna go with the Bucks. I think they win.
Oh man, this is a hard one for me. This is a really, really hard one for me. I know I said I think the Bucks will win the Super Bowl this year, but I just don't know. I really don't know. It's really hard to pick. I'm gonna have to pick one. Obviously, I can't just say I don't know and then not pick one. Originally, I said the only team that I thought could knock off the Bucks would be the Seahawks.
Yeah.
That's what I said. But with the way that this defense has been playing for the Saints and the way that the defense is playing for the Bucks, it makes it really, really hard to pick the Bucks. Because the Saints defense is just playing so well. And they're going to be at home. They don't have to travel. They don't have any weird schedules. They're going to sleep in their own beds. And there's something to say about that. And I think there will be fans in Superdome. I don't believe it's anywhere near capacity. But I believe there will be fans.
Yeah, I believe so.
And so up to 6,000, I believe, is what they said. Oh man. The Bucks have the 28th best rushing defense or rushing offense. Saints have the 6th. The Bucks have the second best passing offense. The Saints have the 19th. And that was without Drew Brees some. Defensive wise, they're pretty similar, the 6th versus the 4th. But again, the Bucks defense has not been playing incredibly well. And so I think this game is really going to come down to a defensive game. It's going to be more on the defense than it will be on Drew Brees or Tom Brady. With that being said, I'm going to pick the Bucks to win this game. I picked them winning the Super Bowl. I'm going to continue to back them as much as it kills me, because I think the Saints, I think this is definitely, in my mind, the game to watch this weekend. I think this one is going to be the game.
I guess it's the later Sunday game.
Yeah, it's the later Sunday game.
Sunday night, but
yeah, well, there is
Sunday
no
night
Sunday
gets,
night.
Well, I guess Saturday. NBC production crew gets the Saturday night game.
Saturday night, yeah. Saturday night is the Ravens and Bills, which will be another great game. I think all of these will be really great games. I think this is going to be a really great weekend for NFL football. But I think that Saints versus Bucks game is going to be, because here's the deal: this may be the last time you see these two play each other, and I think it's just going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a great game. And I think next week, even if if the Saints win or the Bucks win, they have to go play the Packers, and I think that's going to be a great game too. So we're in line for some really, really good games, and if the Bills and the Chiefs win, you're gonna have a really good game. Josh Allen versus Pat Mahomes. So I really do think this season is going to end really well for the NFL, and if people aren't watching, they should be.
I agree.
All right, man. Well, I think that's all we got. That's all I got, at least. You got anything else you want to throw at us, talk about?
No. A shout out to the MLB. Couple moving parts. We're getting some action. I think we'll have more to talk about. Usually they go through their winter meetings, which were probably done via Zoom this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then the new year hits and everyone kind of realizes, oh, we have spring training coming up this year. On this calendar year, 2021.
Yeah.
Spring training is just a few months away. So stuff starts moving. So we'll hopefully have some baseball stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
But we're in for an exciting finish to this NFL season, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I think that's all we've got. There will be no second stream tonight. I'm actually gonna go to bed. I'm exhausted, so there's no second stream tonight. But thank you everyone who's hung out, been around today. Really do appreciate it. And we will see you next time. If you've missed any of the previous episodes, they will be up on YouTube. I will try and get those done this week. And also, we could have a little bit different of schedule this week when it comes to streaming. So if you're not on the Discord, join the Discord. Look at the announcements section. You'll see when we're live there. So that being said, that's all I got. Zach, I'll pass it out to you, and you finish it out for us.
Thanks everyone for watching. See, we're kind of getting a few people in here a little late, but you guys can catch up on YouTube, and we'll be talking NFL next week.
All right, awesome. Thanks guys so much. You have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we'll see you next time. Peace.